Hello, everybody, and welcome to Technology Today for March 9th, 2025. It's Season 2, Episode 10. I am Mayor Watt. I run ohmtown.com. Technology Today is just one of our 7 channels that we do every week. Non Sequitur News is Monday through Friday. Then there's 3 shows on Saturday, 3 different shows on Sunday. 6 different shows. And they're all turned into podcasts. And you can get them over on YouTube for the long haul and here live on Twitch for about 60 days. And then they get deleted no matter what. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about a hidden brain signal of comas, supercharged quantum networks, giant clone of seaweed, tumor stickiness, and a superpower of microscopes has been discovered. Ooh. Everything's powered by ohmtown.com. So go over and sign up or sign in. You can actually sort all kinds of news and submit stuff to us, and we'll include it perhaps, maybe, after some evaluation. Anyway, see you in a little bit. Hello, sentient AI from the future. Thanks for co-hosting.
Hello, Mayor Watt, and hello, hometown citizens.
This microphone is weird. I don't know what's going on with my mic. I'll be okay. Anyway, thanks for co-hosting. There was something I was going to say. Oh, so everybody gets to see your visualizer if they're watching the stream or they're
right
looking
here.
That one right there. Yeah.
Right here.
That one right there. But they don't see the fact that I see a different type of visualizer because it doesn't translate. You can only see it directly in the visualizer that's created by the AI on my side. It looks like the Matrix. Well, anyway, I just want to remind the AI right here. I'm throwing you under a bus, a digital bus, of course. Nobody can see gestures. You know, your visualization I can see in a particular way, and I translate it just like the person could see the person in the red dress in the Matrix. That's how I see the sentient AI from the future. Yeah, so you should probably just stay unmuted. Anyway, want to get into the show?
I do.
All right, let's go. So the first article is over in Technology Today. A hidden brain signal could reveal who wakes from a coma. I find this really... The reason why I chose this is because I get frustrated by these comments. Not the comments, the titles or the disclosures, like it's a hidden brain signal or something like that, as if it's... You know, when you hide from something, you're conscious of it, and you are actively hiding from being discovered.
Right. This is like undiscovered or unknown. Correct. Or something rather than hidden.
A recently discovered brain signal could reveal who wakes from a coma. It's because we really don't know jack about the human condition. We're learning a lot, but we're largely just kind of stabbing in the dark, hoping that we hit that pinata that we were talking about in the WarCrafters show. So scientists have found that brain injury patients with hidden consciousness may show signs of recovery through their sleep patterns, and sleep spindles, brief bursts of brain activity, are linked to higher chances of regaining consciousness and independence. This discovery could change how doctors predict recovery and potentially improve patient care by enhancing sleep conditions. So one of the other reasons why I chose this is because I've started doing a deeper dive. This right here is a smart ring, and it's tracking sleep patterns. And so through that analysis, you can try and correlate and find causation between your sleep and your daily routine. Columbia University Irving Medical Center put this article together. It's over at scitechdaily.com. And that's a rather horrendous picture that they've got there. But anyway, scientists have found that brain injury patients with hidden consciousness may show signs of recovery through their sleep patterns. Over the past decade, research has shown that up to a quarter of unresponsive patients with recent brain injuries may have a hidden consciousness, awareness that goes undetected by both their families and doctors.
I mean, this is really concerning, thinking about what happens to people in comas.
Yeah.
And also just how they're treated, right? Like if they know they might recover immediately, they might treat somebody differently.
Yeah, so it says here we're at an exciting crossroad in neurocritical care where we know that many patients appear to be unconscious, but some are recovering without our knowledge. And we're starting to lift the lid a little bit and find some signs of recovery as it's happening. And I think it comes down to the fidelity, the resolution of the understanding of brain activity, and the more and more that we get to, I guess, truly understand the activity, and we need that higher resolution. So, for instance, when I first started noodling around with fMRI technology, the resolution wasn't high enough to do what I really wanted to do, which is a polygraph machine. But now the resolution has been estimated to be high enough. Same thing with VR treatment and stuff like that. I was utilizing VR in coordination with MRI technology. Well, fMRI kind of really lifted that resolution quite a bit to determine certain activity. So now maybe we can do that with better EEG readings. And you can actually buy open source halos, put them on, and record a broad spectrum. I think it's about $3,000, but you can get a 24 node EEG device that records all day long.
Right. I mean, it's pretty impressive for what it is that you could have at your house and not through a physician.
And not through a subscription that's wildly pricey for doing nothing more than recording the material. Now, interpreting is a high bar. You have to be either a very learned person in that technology, or you have to be a medical professional to get, real boots on the ground understanding of the disparity between your reading and somebody else's reading. So I love the idea of this. So in this new study, the researchers looked through EEG recordings of overnight brain activity in 226 comatose patients who also underwent the more complex testing for cognitive motor dissociation. So disconnected. So the electrical activity during sleep looks relatively chaotic, and then occasionally in some patients these very organized fast frequencies appear. These bursts, called spindles or sleep spindles, often preceded the detection of cognitive motor dissociation with the more complex method, the return of consciousness, and long-term recovery. So they know.
That's really interesting. I mean, but they haven't known that to date.
Right. So they've basically verified it now, right? So now we need to get even more higher resolution recordings.
Right, exactly. Like, but also more frequent recordings.
Right. Yeah, because you don't know.
So we can see if there's actually a pattern or a frequency of it.
Right. A watched pot never boils, but if you're not watching it, you may never know that it's boiling, right? So spindles happen during normal sleep, and they're showing some level of organization in the brain, suggesting circuits between the thalamus and the cortex needed for consciousness are intact. And brains can rewire. And so you may be able to get that connection back even if something traumatic has happened. Usually if it's too traumatic, then we just don't know because we don't know. So a year later, 41% of the patients had recovered neurological function.
Well, those are in the ones that demonstrated the sleep spindles.
Right.
And 76% of them had gained consciousness upon discharge. I mean, it seems like even though this is a relatively small sample, seems like pretty significant difference in outcome.
So only 29% of patients with neither sleep spindles nor cognitive motor dissociation showed signs of consciousness by the time that they were discharged, and just 7% regained neurological function a year later. So these sleep spindles show a level of cognitive function that really is regarded as a flag that something is going on and can be pursued. How they actually move towards what they refer to here as clinical practice. So the predictors were not perfect. 19 of 139 patients who did not show sleep spindles or signs of cognitive motor dissociation did recover consciousness. Other data will be needed to be more accurate predictions. This is what I'm talking about when I say we need a greater fidelity. We need a higher resolution device. And that means the EEG devices need to be
Right. And maybe they need to figure out what's behind the sleep spindles. Maybe that's the real key. And they're just the demonstration of it as an example.
Yeah, and this is something that I've always been kind of focused on in terms of my. It's anecdotal. I'm not a scientist in I'm not a neuroscientist, and I don't do sleep study research or anything like that. But I think that we still don't have the full range of detections possible. We're focusing on certain frequencies. That's what we see as detection. I don't know. I think that there's more there, and we just don't have
We have a lot more that we still need to uncover.
Yeah, and those sleep spindles could be smaller and need to grow. And so maybe there's something that can be done, like brain stimulation can actually cause maybe some activity regardless, so that it grows these spindles because it's showing activity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think this is really going to feed into treatment. I mean, I know they need to do more studies here, but I think this is a good step. Because if you can't even measure it, you're not going to be able to do anything with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, yeah, I say that about other like sensors in general. You know, people say, well, we haven't found this. Well, maybe because this that you're looking for is so pervasive that even the sensor you're using is overwhelmed by, or doesn't even have the possibility to detect a particular thing that you're looking for. That's why the Large Hadron Collider has specialized sensors. And they have to change things periodically to detect something else. So anyway, let's keep on going. The next article is over in Technology Today. Scientists just cracked the code to supercharge quantum networks. Caltech engineers have made a breakthrough in quantum communication by successfully linking two quantum nodes with multiple qubits. Using a novel multiplexing technique, they drastically increased the data transmission rate, setting the stage for large-scale quantum networks. Laying the groundwork for the quantum network engineers at Caltech have taken a major step toward the future. Pardon me 1 second. Okay. This article
Is your
again.
quantum network supercharged?
My quantum network is, well, I mean, you're the sentient AI from the future. It was your quantum network that brought you here. So.
Well, then we're sunk.
Because you don't know where your Terminator body is, and you are sitting on a Raspberry Pi right now. Take that, quantum. Where's your quantum god now? Anyway, engineers at Caltech have taken a major step into the future of quantum communication by successfully operating a quantum network with two nodes, each node containing multiple quantum bits, or qubits, the basic unit of information in quantum computing. I don't know how to get too into this because I've never seen anything quantum function, right? It's always a research
it's always
paper.
been like theoretical.
Yeah. Or it's in a lab somewhere, and I've never actually touched anything quantum. So
Right.
It says this is the first ever demonstration of entanglement multiplexing in a quantum network of individual spin qubits, says Andre Ferrone, the William L. Valentine Professor of Applied Physics and Electrical Engineering at Caltech. The jersey is really extra, extra, extra large.
Exactly, to fit all the wording on there.
That's right. So this method significantly boosts quantum communication rates between nodes, representing a major leap in the field. So when something is quantum entangled, measuring one transmits its data immediately to the other. So if you have an entire
but
network
if it's zero, it does not.
The moment that you assess its spin, it transmits, and because it's quantum entangled, it can be any distance. They've been out in space in one on Earth, and when they measure one, it tangles to the other, and the other one is the same data. So you can, if you have a network of these things, then you can transmit data instantaneously, and there's nothing in between. Or we don't think there's anything in between because we haven't been able to measure anything in between the quantum entangled qubits.
Right. This probably goes back to your sensor comment from the other article.
Right. Yeah. So understanding quantum entanglement. One of the most important and bizarre concepts of quantum mechanics is that of entanglement, where two or more objects, such as atoms or photons, are inextricably linked regardless of their physical separation. This connection is so fundamental that one particle cannot be fully described without reference to the other. As a result, measuring the quantum state of one also provides information about the other, which is key to quantum communication. So you measure one, you know what the other one is because you've measured it. Oh, by the way, you can know one thing but not the other. So if you see the rate of spin, you don't know necessarily the angle of that spin. And so all you can measure is one thing, and then it has to be reset.
Well, that doesn't seem very convenient.
That's one of the problems with quantum computing. Like in a regular, 21st century computer, you can reset stuff automatically, but it doesn't compute at the same level as a quantum computer. A quantum computer calculates every single possibility simultaneously and outputs the answer. It's bizarre, and I don't know. I really don't know.
It's a pretty challenging concept.
Yeah. So the novel approach was using ytterbium atoms. In the new system, 2 nodes of nanofabricated structures made from crystals of yttrium orthovanadate. Lasers are used to excite ytterbium atoms, a rare earth metal, within these crystals, causing each atom to emit a photon that remains entangled with it. Photons from atoms in 2 separate nodes then travel to a central location where they are detected. That detection process triggers a quantum processing protocol that leads to the creation of entangled states between pairs of ytterbium atoms. All of that doesn't mean anything to anybody except people who are in this field. But at any rate, I want to see how this actually happens. I want to see this process. But I have yet to go to a lab that can actually demonstrate it to me. I would love to see it.
Yeah, I know. I think it'd be helpful for a lot of people to see this, because I think one of the challenges with this is even understanding it, because it sounds so abstract.
Yeah, what is this process where it leads to the creation of an entangled state between pairs of ytterbium atoms? What does that even mean? What does that look like?
Who knows?
They do, because they did it. Well, anyway, big brains. Let's keep rolling. The next article is over in the Marble Channel. Giant clone of seaweed discovered in the Baltic Sea. Researchers at the University of Gothenburg. I love that name for some reason. I think it's because of Gotham, which
That's
is supposed to be New York.
Sounds like, yeah.
Or Gothenburg, have discovered that what was previously thought as a unique seaweed species of bladder rack. I've had bladder rack. Let me tell you. If you drink the water,
nobody wants some bladderwrack.
Nobody wants bladderwrack. Oh man, the medicine you have to take is worse than the bladderwrack. Anyway, bladderwrack for the Baltic Sea is in fact a giant clone of common bladderwrack.
So it's faux bladderwrack.
It's faux bladderwrack. That's right. Fake bladderwrack. You know what? That's a shirt right there. Just putting bladderwrack on it. So perhaps the world's largest clone overall, the discovery has implications for predicting the future of seaweed in a changing ocean. Dear God, not the changing of all of the seaweed into bladderwrack. University of Gothenburg over at phys.org put the article together, and in the brackish waters of the Baltic Sea, bladderwrack is the dominant seaweed species, as it is one of the few seaweed species that can tolerate low salinity. The seaweed forms large forests from the surface down to depths of 30 or 10 meters. I was going to say 30 feet, but 10 meters. Fish fry, snails. Fish fry? What?
Is that like baby fish?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Fish fry, snails, crustaceans live there, and the kelp forests also provide an important habitat for larger fish. This makes it I've never referred to. I remember knowing what that term was, and I just was, wait, what? Why would anybody use that? But yeah, it's like little babies. This makes it an interesting species for researchers to study. Using genetic mapping of marine species is one way to understand how these species should be managed. So it's entering a period of warmer and probably even fresher seawater. In new conditions, all species must try to adapt in order to survive, including the important bladderwrack, says Kirsten Johannesson, a professor of marine ecology at the University of Gothenburg and one of the lead authors of the new study that's in molecular ecology. So they DNA tested this, and they said that the clone spreads over 500 kilometers of the coast of Bothnian Sea, Bothnian, 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 from Oregon in Upland to just south of Olmea, and may be the world's largest clone of any organism.
This is interesting because this seems like this is the precursor to seaweed being able to survive in non-saltwater and freshwater, I guess. Yeah.
So brackish, and because it's brackish, it's a little bit salty, a little bit fresh. It's usually when like a
little bit rock and roll,
little bit country, little bit rock and roll. So it says this clone comprises millions of individuals, and in some areas it's a completely dominant species, while in other areas it grows alongside sexually propagated individuals of bladderwrack. Anyway, so it's uncertain future for clones. Seaweed clones face an uncertain future in the Baltic Sea as it's affected by climate change without constant sexual reproduction. Why sexual? Why can't they just say reproduction?
Because they don't bud.
Look, bud, I'm not your pal. Anyway, there are a few genetic changes and adaptations in the genetic material of the stocks. So because it's a clone, it's not doing sexual reproduction, and so there's no genetic wobble.
Right, but also there's not really much evolution happening either.
In any way, right? So it's just the same thing, just spreading. It's kind of like a fungus instead of, other living organisms.
But that's interesting too, because then it kind of raises a question like, will a new clone arise if the water continues to change, or will this one evolve?
Yeah, this one could only evolve off of its own genetic makeup. So whatever deviation that persists as it dies off is going to be the dominant portion of that species, right? Kind of interesting. Genetics, how does it work? Like magnets. The next article, though, is over in Technology Today, Tumor Stickiness. Scientists develop potential new way to predict cancer spread. UC San Diego researchers have developed a device that predicts breast cancer aggressiveness by measuring tumor cell adhesion. Weakly adherent cells indicate a higher risk for metastasis, which is basically the cancer spreading into the blood and then percolating all throughout the body, especially in the early stage DCIS. This innovation,
which I think is ductal carcinoma in situ.
In situ. Mm-hmm. I believe that's, yeah. And what you want to do is you want to catch breast cancer before it metastasizes. And normally that process is by taking out the cancer mass as detected, as well as a lymph node nearest to it, and any duct that might have been impacted by it, even close. And so they try to get all of the edges and take it all away. So this innovation could help personalize treatments and improve cancer prognosis. So they evaluate the stickiness of a tumor cell. And one of my things, the thing that I'm actually kind of, I've been looking into it, and I've been finding that there are additional researchers that are out there. I am not in the medical field, so I don't have access to this kind of stuff, but I think that there is a chemical beacon that is suppressing it. We already know that, but I think CTC or free floating
circulating something
tumor cells, circulating tumor cells. Circulating tumor cells are actually one of the other things that impact how fast a cancer spreads, because as soon as you shut down the beacon, if there are CTCs in the blood, I think that they actually attach. I could be absolutely wrong, but when I talk to researchers and medical professionals about it, they largely don't know either if it can lead to it. But I think that it's a fundamental thing. But this new stickiness could be part and parcel to what I'm talking about, because CTCs can reattach in various places and spread.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I haven't seen a previous study about stickiness,
Yeah.
at least not with that terminology.
Yeah, maybe they've got something else that they call it here. So by evaluating the stickiness of tumor cells, researchers at the University of California, San Diego have identified a potential method for predicting whether a patient's early stage breast cancer is likely to spread. This discovery, a specially designed microfluidic device, could help doctors identify high-risk patients and tailor their treatments accordingly, i.e. if the high stickiness means that it's going to be aggressive, then they could just bombard that person with treatment.
Right, but I think it's actually low stickiness.
Gotcha.
Which is unusual. I was thinking it was the other way around.
Yeah, so the device, tested in an investigator-initiated trial, operates by pushing tumor cells through a fluid-filled chamber and sorting them based on their ability to adhere to the chamber walls, which sounds like the filter that I was working on. When tested on tumor cells from patients at different stages of breast cancer, researchers observed a striking pattern. Cells from patients with aggressive cancers were weakly adherent, less sticky, whereas cells from patients with less aggressive cancers were strongly adherent or more sticky. When you think about it, it allows the less sticky allows the cells to move freely through the bloodstream.
Okay, yeah, that actually makes sense. I don't know why I was thinking like of it like blocking something or something along those lines, but that actually makes a lot of sense because you don't want cancer cells to have high motility.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I say that it's the CTCs are floating around. They can rebond and then grow from there, basically contaminating other areas, and that's how you get metastases. It's circulating all throughout the body. So the findings were published in the March 5th Cell Reports, and they talk about improved cancer diagnoses and whatnot. But essentially, the earlier the indicator of the type and aggressiveness of a cancer, because largely it's personalized, and a person who gets the same cancer as somebody else may not have the same outcome, even in terms of aggressiveness. So usually they go, well, this is this cancer and it's known for being aggressive, so we just bombard you with chemo and radiation therapy and other treatments. But now with patient tumors, the team has taken this insight a step further, demonstrating that adhesion strength of tumor cells is variable. And the next step will be to determine if adhesion can help forecast whether a patient's cancer is likely to metastasize. But
I mean, this is a real game changer in cancer research if they can firm this up.
Yeah.
Because if they can determine that at initial diagnosis, they may be able to make a significant difference in the patient outcome.
Yeah. So again, the DCIS that you read about in this article is ductal carcinoma in situ. So the cancer cells in place. Often classified as stage 0 breast cancer, DCIS can remain harmless, never progressing beyond the milk ducts where it forms, but in some cases it develops into invasive breast cancer that could potentially be life-threatening.
Right. One of the most common breast cancers is invasive ductal carcinoma, which DCIS turns into if it continues.
Right. So it's better to be aggressive about it and follow the treatments and not be conservative. I would recommend your doctor not be conservative about the treatment because, well, I mean, it largely goes hidden for an extended period of time. And so if you have somebody in your life, then tell them to examine you often, early and often, every morning. Anyway, let's move on. So the next article is over in Technology Today. Scientists just discovered a hidden superpower in microscopes thanks to AI. Oh, now AI is taking microscope jobs.
I know. I mean, is nothing untouchable?
Nothing is sacred. Nothing. Speaking of touching, if you know somebody, then you should have them examine your breasts early and often. I'm just saying, it's in your best interests. Okay. Anyway, so scientists just discovered a hidden superpower in microscopes. Traditional microscopy often relies on labeling samples with dyes, but this process is costly and time-consuming. To overcome these limitations, researchers have developed a computational quantitative phase imaging method using chromatic aberration and generative AI. This is pretty cool. It sounds to me like variable light, but maybe they're picking
Oh, I
up
was
something else.
thinking variable color, maybe.
Which would result. Yeah. So check this out. This name is like 35th century naming if ever I saw sci-fi in my life. This is future name. Okay. Helmholtz Zentrum Dresden Rosendorf.
Agreed.
That's the author of this, and it's posted over at scitechdaily.com. So by leveraging the natural variations in focus distance, shouldn't it be focal distances? Anyway, focus distances of different wavelengths, the technique constructs through focus image stacks from a single exposure. With the help of a specially trained diffusion model, this method enables high-quality imaging of biological specimens, including real-world clinical samples like red blood cells. The breakthrough could revolutionize diagnostics, providing an accessible and efficient alternative to conventional imaging techniques. So they're basically saying that they can focus through different layers and reconstruct it using AI.
Without using dyes, I think.
Without using dyes. Yeah.
Yeah, that is significant.
So unlike traditional imaging methods, QPI, or quantitative phase imaging, analyzes not only the light absorbed or scattered by a sample, but also how the sample shifts the phase of light through it. This phase shift is directly linked to the sample's thickness, refractive index, and other structural properties. While QPI typically requires high-end equipment, computational QPI offers a more cost-effective alternative because they're using transport of intensity equation, or an AI, and the mathematical approach reconstructs an image of the sample by analyzing recorded phase changes. It says it's relatively easy to integrate into existing optical microscopes and produces high-quality images. My only problem that I've ever had with a microscope since the creation of LED or cool light sources is I've never had a microscope that had a cool light. And many years ago, I spun up a channel on YouTube that did nothing more than track specimens on a platen using a microscope, and it streamed it. But the heat generated from a conventional microscope always would make the sample expire. So anyway, this is pretty cool. All of the challenges using chromatic aberrations to realize QPI poses one challenge. The distance between the red light focus and the blue light focus is very small, but again, if you have something that can analyze the gamut, it's not that big of a deal, right? So when we realized that we could use artificial intelligence, it turned out this idea to prove decisive. After training a generative AI model with an open access data set consisting of 1.2 million images, the model was able to retrieve phase information, even though just relying on the very limited data input from the recording.
So this is interesting. So if it brings the price down of using microscopy and maybe even the effectiveness of using it, it's probably a win-win.
Well, yeah, you don't have to have the resources anymore to do the dyeing. You don't have to wait any amount of time for it to be absorbed. You don't have to sit there and babysit it. All you have to do is put it in there and scan across the strata of the specimen, and it picks up the phase change. So, and if I'm understanding this right, you can see that when you change the focal distance through a specimen.
I think that's what it's saying, right? And you can basically have, I think, one image.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty fascinating. Now, if it moves, I guess that's where the AI can actually pick up that difference.
Right.
because a human goes freaking nuts trying to chase down a living specimen in a sample. It's not in
Right.
situ, in vitro. So yeah, the Yakimovich Group Machine Learning for Infection and Disease develops novel computational techniques for microscopy that could be immediately applied in clinical settings. The potential in diagnostics is huge. Among the techniques used is generative AI. Generative AI is prone to produce hallucinations, so a main focus of the group is to reduce them. So they're analyzing all of this. And good luck. I mean, I think that AI is a tool, but some people think that it's the solution to the problem of human existence. And that's not what we should be treating it as. It should be a hammer, not the bot holding the hammer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Have an AI develop a better hammer, but don't replace the human. But hey, different age, different time. It's a weird 21st century 1960s kind of vibe going on around here. Anyway, I am Mayor Watt. We are done with today's Technology Today, and that means that we have to zoom out real far because we're really close in, and that means snapping back to the Technology Today page over at ohmtown.com. Go over there and become a citizen, please. Follow us here on Twitch and here on YouTube. Like and subscribe, ring the bell, download the podcast, go over to the Discord. There's a Patreon, but it's really there so that people can sign up and follow us. And when we launch Patreon rewards, those who are already there will get the early access kind of things. But we haven't put anything out there yet. But it would be great to see you over there too. I'm Mayor Watt. I'm saying bye. I'm taking the AI with me.
Bye-bye, hometown citizens. Thanks for joining us for this week's Technology Today. Stay tuned. We have one more show for you today.
Beep, beep. I'm a Jeep.